Okay, here we go again. In the last section we were discussing whether this piece of lead, which has a weight of nearly a kilogram, 923 grams, will be heavy enough to sink this little boat. Now, I'm going to try and predict that. So what we need to do is figure out what is the volume of this shape. How much volume of water gets pushed out of the way when it goes down and down till it sinks. Now if you watch the side of the tank, it actually goes up. We are pushing water upwards to make room. The question is, how much volume will it be? So we can measure it. Measure it with a ruler. We take, it tapers a little bit, so if we get halfway between the wide bit and the narrow part, and if we measure the length, it's about 15 centimetres, and the width is 10 centimetres, and the depth is 7 centimetres, and if we punch that into the calculator, 15 times 10 times 7 is 1,050 cubic centimetres. So that's the volume of that little pot. Now it happens that a litre is 1,000 cubic centimetres, and so it's just about a litre, which shouldn't be a huge surprise because this is a 1 litre pot. It's designed to hold a litre of food. So let's zoom in a little bit and have a look what happens. Here we go. Have a closer look at what's happening. Go out a little bit so you can see a little bit more. And so what's my prediction? My prediction says that if the pot needs to displace 1,000 cubic centimetres of water till it gets all the way down to its rim, and if this hunk of lead weighs 900 grams, that's not going to be quite enough to sink it. It should be able to support that. What it means is we have to push down 900 cubic centimetres of water, not the 1,000 that we'd need to make it completely sink. So let's put a little bit of lead in. It'll tend to tilt, so we'll need to be very careful trying to get it right in the dead centre. And we might have to shovel it around a little bit to balance it. And there we go. It's sinking just to its rim, but it's still floating. See it moving around? So it hasn't sunk, but it's very, very nearly sunk. So that goes to show that in order to, when things float, they push out of the way their own weight of water. And that's why with big ships, they don't weigh them when they talk about a 100,000 tonne oil tanker. What they do is they measure its volume where the water comes up to on the hull and say, aha, that's 100,000 tonnes of water that has to be put out of the way for that ship to float. So that's how that works. I'm going to carry on the story a little bit longer to talk about people floating. Now, if you look at the stuff that people are made out of, what is that? That's bones and meat and guts. So bones are quite dense. Bones sink quite well. You can try it. Meat actually also sinks. Next time you're cooking a dinner, put a bit of steak or chicken into a pot of water and it will sink down to the bottom. So meat and bones sink. What else are we made of? We've got guts. So what's in your guts? Well, you've got breakfast at one end and poos at the other. So what are most of the common breakfast things? Try putting a bit of porridge or a bit of bacon or something like that into water. Not something that's full of air like toast, but something that's solid. And those things nearly all sink. Poos, they nearly always sink. Have a look next time you go to the loo. And so if we're made up with breakfast and poos and bones and meat and all those things sink, how come people don't sink? Or do they? You try hopping in the pool. I know one of you that might be watching this is living in a tropical country at the moment. Hop in the pool, lie on your back and see if you sink or not. I bet you'll float. And why is that? The reason is that you're not all meat and bones and guts, you're air as well. You've got a big hunk of air in your lungs. That's why you take a breath. Now, it's not a clever thing to try, but if you could breathe out completely, you would find you don't float nearly as well. And that's the unfortunate thing. If people get underwater and they breathe in and fill their lungs with water, they do sink. So don't do it, because you might not come back. Okay, so that's enough about floating and sinking to do with ships and people. Next lesson we want to look at how we measure how dense things are. Why this bit of lead weighs 900 grams, and we say that's a heavy material, but this table weighs even more than that, and that would float. Great big logs weigh a lot more than a kilogram, but they float. So it's not just how heavy things are, there's something else in there. So we want to look at that next time.